Happy Wednesday, everyone. My name is Yiling Zhuang. I'm the Water Resources Regional Specialized Agent in University of Florida IFAS Extension. Welcome to Water Wednesday. Water Wednesday is a webinar series about Florida's precious resource, water. Every Wednesday afternoon at 2 o'clock Eastern Time, we'll live stream a 30-minute talk about Florida's water and what we can do to protect it. We host our webinar series on Zoom and broadcast to Facebook Live. We have attendees joining us all over the world. Please put in the chat box and tell me where you are watching this webinar. If you are viewing it on Facebook, please be aware of the scammers. This webinar series is free. Please do not click any links that are not posted by the admin. We have a theme for every month. Last month, we focused on precision agriculture and its relationship to water resources. If you miss these talks, I will post a link in the chat box so you can click that link and it will redirect you to our recap blogs and the recordings. This month, we'll focus on clean water. As a start, I will give you a quick overview of Florida water policy regulations. At a first glance of Florida laws, it's kind of a tangle of alphabet soup and acronyms. So I will introduce just a few key highlights here. I encourage you to focus on the overall concepts and the opportunities to participate in these processes. Before we had clean water laws, raw sewage sometimes kept swimmers out of the surf. Pollutants can be dumped almost everywhere. The background picture shows an ocean outfall pipe for partially treated wastewater. This is a modern-day picture. It was captured in 2015. It does not completely represent the historical conditions discussed on this slide, but it gives a good visual sense of the phenomenon mentioned here. Then Floridians said, "We want clean water," which led to a series of new and updated clean water laws over the next half century. Today, I will touch on just a few highlights within that series. The earliest of these laws came in 1967, more than 50 years ago. Because Floridians like clean fresh water, the Florida Air and Water Pollution Control Act was passed. At that point, sewage treatment plants began cleaning up wastewater before discharging it into our streams, rivers, and lakes. Floridians also like clean coastal waters because we are three sides surrounded by water. So 3 years later, protection came to these waters in the form of the Florida Pollutant Discharge Prevention and Control Act. This act better protects our waters from oil spills and other water pollution. A quick overview of the Florida Pollutant Discharge Prevention and Control Act. It empowers and provides a trust fund, the Florida Coastal Protection Trust Fund, for the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, FDEP, and the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission to regulate, investigate, rehabilitate, and clean up the sites contaminated by spills and discharge. And this act also extends liability for site pollution to several potential defendants and is a permanent measure for forcing responsible parties to contribute to the cost of cleanups. For the century as a whole, as well as Florida, the 1970s represented sort of a turning point. One important event came in 1969 when the Cuyahoga River, as shown in the background of this picture, Cuyahoga River in Ohio caught on fire. This had happened before, but this time it helped to spur grassroots activism that led to a wave of federal legislation to help rein in air and water pollution. One important piece of the legislation is the U.S. Clean Water Act, which was passed in 1972. Under the Clean Water Act, U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, U.S. EPA, has implemented pollution prevention programs such as setting wastewater standards for industry. It led to further improved sewage treatment plants. The Clean Water Act also set water quality standards for all contaminants in surface waters. In addition, the Clean Water Act made it unlawful to discharge any pollutant from a point source into navigable waters, unless a permit was obtained. The U.S. EPA National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, NPDES permit program controls point source discharges. We'll mention NPDES again in a few slides. One significant outcome of that era was the creation of our regional water management districts. There are 5 water management districts in Florida, and their boundaries are based not on political boundaries, but rather on natural drainage basins. This form of water management is unique and forward-looking. The district's responsibilities include 4 broad categories of water management, from water supply, including water conservation and allocation, to water quality, flood protection, and natural system management. If you are watching this webinar in Florida, please put in the chat box and let me know, A, which water management district are you sitting in right now? And B, what is the general direction of water flow in your district? I will leave this slide here just for a few more seconds so you can figure out which water management district you are at. I'm located in the Mid-Florida Research and Education Center, which is in Central Florida. So if you look at this map, you can see Central Florida is covered by 3 water management districts, from St. John's River Water Management District to Southwest Florida and the South Florida Water Management District. And I'm reading some comments here. I have, so far I see the answers are most from Northwest Water Management District. Great, so I will move on. Since the time of these early groundbreaking pieces of legislation, we have also seen occasional updates. In 1990, for example, we passed a law to tackle stormwater pollution, specifically to identify polluted water bodies, identify where stormwater is polluting them, and then reduce that pollution. So far, we mentioned the state and the national efforts. Local governments also play a significant role in water stewardship through land use plans, codes, ordinances, and regulations. This may be even more protective of clean water than state and federal laws. Because of local government involvement, Floridians have more opportunities to be involved in clean water management. Now let's shift gears and have a look at a few management tools that arise from our water laws. Specifically, I will highlight a few items that are predominant in news recently, I encourage you to watch for mention of these tools in the news and also to look for opportunities to participate in their development and implementation. All of these programs and processes invite stakeholder participation. So we often hear that phrase, like the goal of water management is getting the water right. So please put in the chat box. Let me know, what do you think that phrase might mean? What does getting the water right mean to you? I know you are still typing. So while you are typing, I will also check on Facebook, see what are the comments over there. All right, I see a few answers here. It means clean water, good water quality, enough water, water security. So just like all the answers here, right? It could mean a lot of different things depending on who you are and what your priorities are. So you can imagine how these phrases might mean to different things to different stakeholders. So I list a few examples here. So it just for a hiker, their goals might be different from landscapers or as the ecosystem managers, their goal getting the water right might be different from other stakeholder. So just put it here to inspire your thoughts, and we move on to that. I put it here is one way to think about getting the water right. Is to break the concept down into different components. For example, if we think about the natural systems that benefit us, so we want to think about the water quantity. Different plants, for example, need different amounts of water to thrive. We also want to think about water quality. Seagrasses, for example, they live underwater. They are very sensitive to what's in the water. And sometimes we forget to think about timing. Some plants and ecosystems have very specific timing requirements. Cypress production, for example, coincides with events in wet and dry seasons. And the last but not the least, distribution. How does the water get from here to there? The same considerations also apply to built environments. We want the quantity to be right, not too much and not too little. We want to be able to safely drink our water and swim and fish. We also want there be water at the faucet wherever we turn it on. And although we don't often think about it, we want for someone somewhere to be thinking about how to get clean water to us and dirty water away from us. We will not have enough time today to address all these aspects. I will touch briefly just on a few tools related to water quality and water quantity. First, water quality standards. Water quality standards for Florida lakes, rivers, and streams depend on their intended uses. So the standards for shellfish waters will be different from the standards for irrigation water. With each of these 5 categories, water managers rely on a variety of data to determine if the water resource has been impaired. To make this determination, they studied the creatures living in the water resource, such as algae, bacteria, plants, and wildlife, along with water chemistry and physical characteristics, such as clarity and turbidity. So one tool you might hear about in the news or at a city meeting is the word impaired. So what does that mean? What does impaired mean? In Florida, a lake, river, or stream is considered impaired if it fails to meet specific water quality standard according to its intended use. Here is a map of waters not meeting water quality standards for their designated uses, covering almost 2,600 water bodies and segments. Since different water bodies of different segments of the same water body may fail to meet more than one water quality standard, in total, there are almost 4,600 entries in the database of waters not meeting water quality standards, with each entry being a combination of a pollutant plus a water body segment. Most common parameters for which the standards are not met include mercury in fish tissue due to the bioaccumulation, pathogens, low dissolved oxygen, and high nutrient concentration. Now, for each cause of impairment within each of those 2,600 water bodies, we need to determine how much of a pollutant the water body can take in and still meet its designated use. So another term you may encounter in the news and the stakeholder gatherings is TMDL, the total maximum daily load. How much a pollutant load can the water body take in every day and still meet the water quality requirements for its designated purpose? That's the definition of TMDL. This is the equation of TMDL. Many of you may not be very interested in this equation, but it shows you how TMDL is calculated. It is the sum of individual waste load allocation for point source, non-point sources, and a margin of safety to account for uncertainty. Here is a map of impaired water bodies for which TMDLs have not yet been developed. Some major water bodies are highlighted here to draw your attention. For example, Upper Peace River is highlighted in red, but all the colors from red to gray indicate waters that fail to meet water quality standards. As you can see here, there is still a lot of work ahead of us. The state's list as of 2019 contains 508 unique water body segments that still need TMDLs. For each segment, on average, 3 TMDLs are required, since the stretches may fail to meet various water quality standards. In total, there are approximately 1,700 combinations of water body segment plus pollutant that still need a TMDL, which is a total maximum daily load. Mirrored impaired water bodies, the most common causes for which we still need to develop TMDLs are pathogens, low dissolved oxygen, nutrients, and metal. Here's the next step in the process, BMap. Basin Management Action Plans, BMAP. So in last few slides, we learned first, we identified impaired water bodies. Then we developed and adopted a TMDL for a problem pollutant. But how do we get down to that maximum load? That's what the BMAP is for. BMap, the Basin Management Action Plan, is a blueprint for getting from where we are now with the pollutant in excess of its TMDL to where we want to be with the pollutant at an acceptable level. The TMDL step is rather technical, but the BMAP step really requires significant stakeholder involvement. Once a BMAP is adopted, we monitor our progress towards achieving the TMDL goal, and then we make adjustment as needed. Here is a map of BMAP status around the state of Florida. You can also find this map on the Florida Department of Environmental Protection website. The dark green areas show adopted BMAPs. The light green areas show pending BMAPs. The blue lines here show the adopted TMDLs, and the gray areas show the waters not attaining its designated, doesn't attaining the water quality standards. So that was a non-point source pollution. What about point source pollution? Remember earlier I mentioned the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, NPDES. So point source pollution is much less a problem than it used to be. One reason for this is the NPDES, National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. Sometimes you will hear the acronym in news too. Under this program, this permit program, industrial, municipal, and other facilities must obtain permits for discharges that go directly to surface waters. Now let's move on to water quantity. First, let's talk about water withdrawals. In that context, you are quite likely to hear mention of CUP, consumptive use permit. In Florida, water is located by a permit system administered by our 5 water management districts. The overall goal of the program is to avoid waste, provide certainty to existing users, be fair, protect natural resources, and provide for future users. One criteria for a permit is that the water use must be reasonable and beneficial and in the public interest. As you can imagine, this can be quite a contentious process. The terms such as public interest, reasonable and beneficial, and no significant harm to the ecosystems are open to interpretation and may result in conflicts that have to be resolved through the courts. One well-known example is the water wars among Florida, Alabama, and Georgia regarding who gets the water from Apalachicola river system. Some of you also asked this particular question during registration too. For the past 30 years, the use of the waters of Apalachicola River Basin has been tied up in the courts. Recently, it's been back to the court to re-examine the water rights. So as you can imagine, interstate water supply planning is complicated, but virtually inevitable. In addition to the existing regulations, and innovative approach is a collaborative approach. As you can see on the slide, is Apalachicola, Chattahoochee, Flint River Basin stakeholder group. Just to give you a snapshot of this stakeholder group, it is a collaborative group of organizations and individuals who live, work, and use water resources of Apalachicola River Basin. They come together to discuss possible actions to take the interest of creating sustainable solutions among stakeholders that balance economic, ecological, and social values in the sharing of this natural resource. It is a grassroots collaborative effort launched by the stakeholders instead of the government agencies. I will encourage you to look it up sometime. One major challenge associated with water supply planning is finding the balance between meeting the public water supply needs while maintaining the healthy natural systems essential to Florida's economy and quality of life. One way that water managers ensure that the water resources and associated economical systems are protected is through the implementation of MFL, which is minimum flows and minimum water levels. And MFL is the amount of water flow beyond which any further withdrawals can cause significant harm to water resource or to the environment. Determining minimum flows and levels requires a complex scientific and technical analysis. The water management districts are making progress in establishing MFLs in most water bodies. And this is already playing a much greater role in water resources planning and permitting. Here is the map of springs, rivers, and lakes adopted MFLs. A recovery strategy is implemented if an MFL is not currently met. They are also periodically reevaluated. As our scientific knowledge will continue to grow over time, reevaluating an MFL allows the use of updated data and the latest computer models and other analytic tools to access and revise the existing MFL. A more familiar acronym might be BMPs, Best Management Practices. How many of you use BMap or BMPs in your jobs? Please put in the chat box and let me know. BMPs are recommended actions that reduce negative impacts while at the same time being practical and cost-effective. BMP manuals are available for a wide variety of target audience, from different kinds of agriculture production to individual homeowners. Most of us might be more familiar with Ag BMP. Here is an example of a BMP manual aimed at property owners and homeowner associations. So if you use any BMP in your job, please put it in the chat box. Let me know what type of BMPs are you using. And while we are talking about BMPs, one of Florida's best kept BMP secrets is perhaps the fact Florida law requires all automatic landscape irrigation systems to have a rain shadow device, such as rain sensor. However, many people are not aware of this state law. So that can be a little bit exercise of this webinar. You can go back if you have an automatic irrigation system, you can check where is your ring sensor. Probably also check if your ring sensor is working properly. With the rain we have, especially for a raining day, your automatic irrigation system should not be turned on. One thing I want to point out is that all of these processes invite citizen participation. If you keep your eyes open, you will see many opportunities to join in. In closing, questions you might think about going forward, such as, do we still have room to improve? We definitely have room to improve. Just like this background picture shows here is the Florida red tide. So we know we still have room to for improvement. Then where do we go from here and how do we get there? There are certainly no easy answers. And we will continue discussing these questions in the upcoming Water Wednesday webinars. And with that, I will conclude this 30-minute talk about Florida water regulations and policies. At the left corner, you can see a GR code. I will appreciate you can scan the code and take the post-webinar evaluation and tell us what you have learned and how we can improve this Water Wednesday series. And with that, I will take your questions and comments. You can put in the chat box. And while you are typing all the questions, let me check the Facebook page, see if we have any comments there. I don't see any questions here on the chat box. So you probably are still typing the questions. So I will just wait for a couple minutes, let you finish typing. If you are typing your questions, another function you can use is if you are on Zoom, you can use the raise up your hand function, that button, so I can know you are typing your question. And I see one question asked on Facebook is about BMP. So if you are looking for agriculture related BMP manuals, BMP is best management practices. You can go to Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Sciences. They list all the ag BMPs. And other than that, you can also find the GIBMP manual. So just like I said, it has all kinds of different BMPs. What you can do if you want to find a specific BMP, you can search what you want. Like the one I show you, stormwater BMP, you can put Florida, see if you can find it. And usually those BMPs are statewide, and some counties, they may have their specific county BMPs. All right, I don't see any questions here, though we still have around 10 minutes for questions. So if you don't have any questions, or if you have any questions later, you can see my contact info here. Feel free to email me. And if you want to know the upcoming Water Wednesday talks, please follow my Facebook page or Twitter account. That's where I usually post the latest webinar info. And if you are viewing us on Facebook Live, I will appreciate if you can give me a thumbs up. And I already post the link. If you cannot scan that QR code, I already put the evaluation link in the chat box. So with that, I appreciate your time and hope everyone can enjoy the rest of your Wednesday afternoon. And I will see you next Wednesday.